The SEAL team had been deep in the dense jungle for hours, each step heavy with humidity and tension. Their mission was critical: extract sensitive intelligence from a remote compound before it could fall into enemy hands. The sun was high, filtering through thick foliage, creating a patchwork of light and shadow on the forest floor. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves could signal danger. The soldiers moved with practiced precision, silent communication through hand signals, eyes scanning constantly. Their boots sank into the muddy undergrowth, slick from recent rains, and the stifling heat pressed down on their necks. Lieutenant Carter, the team's leader, paused briefly to check the map and coordinates on his handheld device. The extraction point was still a mile away, but he knew that this stretch of jungle was one of the most dangerous segments of their route. The intelligence they carried was critical. If it fell into the wrong hands, countless lives would be at risk. His jaw tightened as he scanned the tree line ahead. Eyes sharp, he whispered to his team, his voice low, controlled, but carrying an unspoken urgency. They had trained for scenarios like this hundreds of times, yet nothing could fully prepare them for the unpredictability of real combat. The SEALs moved in a staggered formation, each soldier covering a specific sector, weapons ready, eyes flicking in every direction. Sergeant Ramirez, a veteran of countless missions, whispered a quiet joke to the sniper beside him, trying to ease the tension. A brief laugh passed through the team, but it was quickly stifled by the oppressive silence of the jungle. Without warning, a hail of bullets erupted from the tree line. The sound was deafening, echoing through the trees like a clap of thunder. The SEALs dropped instantly, adrenaline surging through their veins as they sought cover behind trees, rocks, and low ridges. "We're pinned down," Lieutenant Carter shouted, his voice sharp but controlled. The team's training kicked in, each member moving instinctively, returning fire and scanning for enemy positions. The extraction point was compromised. The enemy had anticipated their route, laying an ambush that was precise, merciless, and deadly. Bullets tore through foliage and mud, some grazing arms and legs. The soldiers were outnumbered, and every second felt like a lifetime. Explosions nearby shook the ground, sending clouds of dirt and debris into the humid air. The SEALs communicated in rapid-fire hand signals, shouting coordinates and warnings over the roar of gunfire. The enemy's strategy was clear: isolate, intimidate, and eliminate. But the team's training was stronger. Each SEAL moved like a shadow, calculating angles of fire, conserving ammunition, and protecting each other with split-second decisions that could mean the difference between life and death. Through the chaos, a faint sound reached Lieutenant Carter's ears, movement that didn't match the disciplined cadence of soldiers or the erratic behavior of the enemy. His eyes flicked to the edge of the jungle, and there she was, a young woman, clearly out of place, clutching a stack of textbooks to her chest. Her wide eyes reflected both fear and determination. She froze, unsure whether to run or stay, but instinctively stayed put. "Civilian," Sergeant Ramirez barked, leveling his rifle. The others followed, weapons trained on her, cautious but wary. They had no time for mistakes. A single misjudgment could be fatal. The girl raised her hands slowly, showing she was unarmed, but her calm posture and intense gaze suggested she was no ordinary bystander. Carter signaled for caution. "Hold your fire," he ordered, though his voice barely rose above the din of gunfire. The girl's voice was steady, almost eerily calm. "I can help," she said. The team exchanged skeptical glances. "Help?" In the middle of a jungle ambush with bullets tearing through the air? Carter stepped closer, maintaining eye contact. "Help? How? You have a gun?" She shook her head. "No, but I know where to find one, and I know how to use it." The SEALs froze, assessing the risk. The idea of trusting a civilian in the middle of a life-or-death situation was almost unthinkable. Yet their options were dwindling. Bullets running low, enemy closing in, and the extraction point still a dangerous distance away. Carter weighed the decision carefully. Every instinct screamed caution, but experience whispered opportunity. Sometimes the most unlikely allies appeared when you least expected them. The girl's explanation came fast and confident. Her apartment, just outside the jungle perimeter, contained a hidden sniper rifle she had used for years of secret practice. She offered a trade, her collection of rare books, for permission to assist the team. The proposal was audacious, almost absurd, yet it carried a strange logic. She was precise, patient, and calculating qualities that mirrored the team's own training. Carter motioned for her to follow him back to cover. He signaled the team to keep their positions. They moved silently, weapons ready, eyes never leaving the edge of the tree line. Every step was measured, calculated. The girl followed, textbooks clutched tightly, and an unmistakable spark of determination in her eyes. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't trained for this. But there was something in her demeanor, a combination of courage, intelligence, and calm that suggested she could make a difference. The jungle seemed to press in around them, alive with danger. Each snap of a branch or rustle of leaves could signal the enemy closing in. The SEALs relied on years of experience, yet the girl's presence shifted something. Her confidence, quiet but palpable, became a strange beacon of hope. Carter allowed himself a brief moment to consider the absurdity of the situation. A college girl, textbooks in hand, potentially about to turn the tide of a firefight against seasoned combatants. Time slowed as they reached a concealed vantage point near the edge of the enemy's line. The girl crouched, surveying the terrain, calculating angles and distances. Her eyes flicked from one target to another, analyzing, predicting, planning. Carter and the team watched in cautious amazement. This civilian, this student, seemed to understand the battlefield in ways that mirrored their own tactical thinking. The enemy, unaware of the new factor in play, continued their assault with brutal precision. But the SEALs had regained a sliver of hope, a potential turning point in an otherwise dire situation. Carter signaled the team to stay put and observe. Every second was a gamble, every movement critical. And in the midst of this chaos, an unlikely ally armed with nothing but her knowledge, courage, and a promise of firepower prepared to make the impossible possible. The moment hung in the humid air like a suspended heartbeat. Every fighter, friend and foe alike, was locked into their roles. And somewhere in the dense jungle, destiny waited to be rewritten. A college girl, books clutched to her chest, stood poised to trade academia for survival, knowledge for bullets, and ordinary life for extraordinary heroism. The college girl stood frozen at the edge of the clearing, textbooks pressed to her chest, her mind racing faster than her heart. One moment, she had been walking home from the university library, lost in thoughts of quantum mechanics and literature, and the next, a hail of bullets had turned the quiet jungle trail into a war zone. She could barely comprehend what she was seeing. The SEALs crouched behind trees, smoke rising from disturbed earth, and enemy figures moving with lethal precision. Fear should have paralyzed her. Instead, an odd calm washed over her. "Hold your fire," the team's leader, Lieutenant Carter, commanded, his sharp voice cutting through the roar of gunfire. The girl flinched, instinctively ducking lower behind a large fallen log. Her wide eyes scanned the jungle. Every shadow could be death. Every rustle of leaves could mark her end. Yet she forced herself to breathe, to focus, to think. She wasn't trained for combat, not in the traditional sense, but in her own life. She had learned discipline, patience, and precision. Years of studying complex theories and practicing with a rifle at home had honed her mind for calculation and observation. Sergeant Ramirez lowered his weapon slightly, glancing at the girl with skepticism and disbelief. "What is she doing here?" he muttered, almost to himself. The others exchanged uncertain looks. Civilians didn't survive in combat zones without training. And yet, there was something about her, an unwavering composure, an analytical gaze that made them pause. Carter gestured for her to speak. "Do you understand what's happening?" he asked. Her reply came steady, controlled, almost eerily mature. "Yes, I know it's happening, and I can help," she said. The words sounded impossible. Help? In this deadly, chaotic jungle? Yet her tone carried conviction. Carter raised an eyebrow. "Help how?" The girl glanced over her shoulder briefly, calculating. "I have access to a sniper rifle nearby. I've trained with it for years. I can cover you. I can take out threats before they even see you." The team froze, considering her claim. Trust a civilian? It was reckless, almost unthinkable. But bullets were dwindling. The extraction point was still dangerously far, and the enemy was relentless. Every instinct screamed caution, yet Carter couldn't deny the logic. If she could do what she claimed, she could save lives, possibly all of theirs. He motioned for the team to remain in position. "Show us," he ordered. The girl nodded, her fingers brushing the spines of her textbooks as if drawing strength from them. With surprising agility, she moved with them, ducking low, staying behind cover, and keeping a careful eye on every movement. The SEALs watched, skeptical but cautious, as she navigated the terrain with uncanny precision. She wasn't just running blindly. Every step, every pause, every breath was calculated. It was as if her mind had shifted into a different mode, one that combined observation, calculation, and intuition, a mode that mirrored the very instincts of soldiers trained for life-or-death decisions. Carter glanced at Ramirez, who shrugged. "If she dies, it's on us," Ramirez whispered. Carter nodded grimly. That was true. But what other choice did they have? The girl had already demonstrated remarkable composure under fire, more than some seasoned soldiers had shown in similar situations. Her knowledge of angles, physics, and even her quiet study habits had equipped her with an unexpected advantage. Sometimes intellect was as lethal as muscle, as precise as ammunition. They moved together toward the edge of the jungle, where she claimed the rifle was stored. Every step was tense. Enemy fire peppered the surrounding trees, forcing the team to drop low, crawl, and advance with meticulous care. The girl whispered observations, pointing out potential ambush points and hidden snipers. Her eyes, wide but unwavering, scanned the tree line with a sharpness that rivaled the trained SEALs. Carter found himself silently admiring her focus. Fear was present, yes, but it was tempered by control, logic, and daring. When they reached a small, camouflage shed at the edge of a dilapidated compound, she paused. "It's here," she whispered. Inside, as promised, was a sniper rifle well maintained, with a scope that gleamed in the filtered sunlight. The girl picked it up, weighing it in her hands. Familiarity radiated from her movements, each adjustment precise, deliberate, and practiced. She checked the chamber, sight alignment, windage, and range as if performing a ritual she had done countless times before. The SEALs watched in awe. This was no ordinary civilian. This was someone who had prepared for the improbable, and now stood ready to alter the odds. "You've used this before?" Ramirez asked quietly. She nodded, eyes still scanning the horizon. "I've trained for years. Long-range targets, stationary and moving. I've studied trajectories, wind, and timing. You want survival? You'll need every shot to count." "I make every shot count." Carter finally exhaled, tension easing slightly. He gestured to the team. "Okay, we do this my way, and you follow directions." Stay hidden. Take the shot when I call it. Understood? She nodded, almost silently, and slung the rifle across her shoulder. Every movement was controlled, deliberate, confident. The juxtaposition of textbooks and sniper rifle, intellect and lethality, created a surreal yet powerful image. The jungle seemed to contract around them, alive with potential threats. The enemy's relentless fire reminded them that seconds could mean life or death. And yet, amidst the chaos, an unlikely alliance had formed trained SEALs and a civilian student, drawn together by circumstance, trust, and the will to survive. Every eye in the team watched her movements, every heartbeat synchronized to her actions. As they moved into position, Carter whispered tactical instructions. You cover the ridge. Ramirez and the others will flank. You get one clean shot at a time. Make it count. The girl adjusted her scope, breath steady, pulse controlled, eyes fixed on her target. Around them, bullets ricocheted, mud sprayed, and the air thickened with tension. Yet she remained composed, a remarkable combination of intellect, courage, and focus. She was no longer a student worried about exams or essays. She was a sniper now, a critical player in a life-or-death mission. Her textbooks lay forgotten for a moment, replaced by strategy, calculation, and lethal precision. Carter realized something profound. Heroism didn't always come from uniform, training, or experience. Sometimes it came from courage, intelligence, and the unexpected audacity to step forward when most would run. Minutes stretched like hours. Enemy movements shifted. Bullets tore through leaves and soil, and every decision was critical. Yet the team moved with newfound hope, guided by the girl's sharp observations and calculated instincts. Each step forward, each covered maneuver, demonstrated a trust that had formed in minutes, yet felt unbreakable. She had become the pivot on which survival now balanced. Carter glanced at her briefly. Ready? He asked. She nodded. In that moment, she became more than a civilian. She became an integral part of the SEAL team, a student turned protector, intellect turned weapon, fear turned focus. The jungle seemed to acknowledge her presence, the chaos bending around her determination. And for the first time since the ambush began, hope glimmered through the haze of smoke, mud, and gunfire. The enemy had no idea their focus was about to be shattered, their strategy disrupted by an unlikely sniper. The SEALs, now ready to move under her cover, took a deep collective breath. The impossible was about to become possible. A college girl, armed with knowledge, precision, and courage, had entered the battlefield, and everything was about to change. The girl crouched behind the fallen log, the sniper rifle heavy but familiar in her hands. Sweat beaded on her forehead, dripping into her eyes, but she didn't flinch. Every sense was alert. The SEALs around her adjusted positions, moving stealthily through the dense undergrowth, bullets ricocheting through the canopy above. Lieutenant Carter studied her carefully. She wasn't just brave. She was precise, analytical, and calm an anomaly in this chaos of gunfire and fear. Yet, as much as her presence offered hope, a critical question lingered in Carter's mind. Could a civilian truly make a difference in this deadly firefight? Her voice cut through the tension, low but confident. There's a rifle in a nearby shed. I can get it, but I need something in return. The SEALs froze. She meant she wanted a trade, here, in the middle of a firefight. Ramirez blinked. A trade? What do you want? The girl glanced down at the textbooks clutched under her arm. My books. My entire collection. I'll trade them for the rifle, and then I'll cover you. A moment of disbelief passed through the team. Rare books for a sniper rifle in the middle of an ambush? The absurdity of it made the situation almost surreal. Yet Carter quickly assessed the logic. The girl had proven her calm under fire. She had studied trajectories, windage, and long-range calculations extensively. If she was as skilled as she claimed, a single rifle in her hands could be worth far more than a library of books. The decision wasn't about books. It was about survival. "Fine," Carter said, finally nodding. "The books. Get the rifle. Then take your position." He motioned to Ramirez, who reluctantly moved forward with her toward the shed, weapons raised but ready to assist. Every step was tense, each movement measured to minimize exposure to enemy fire. The girl moved like a shadow, rifle slung, textbooks clutched, glancing back at the SEALs with a steady determination. They followed, covering her flank, hearts hammering, eyes flicking from one potential threat to the next. The shed was partially camouflaged, tucked behind a thicket of vines and moss-covered trees. Its metal roof was rusted, and the wooden door creaked under the slightest pressure. Inside, the rifle rested on a rack, meticulously cleaned and cared for. She reached for it, hands sure and practiced, checking every detail. Chamber loaded, scope calibrated, windage adjusted, and distance calculated in seconds. She tested the trigger gently, then slung the weapon into position. The SEALs watched silently, realizing that the girl had not only promised help, she had prepared meticulously for this moment. Outside, the jungle roared with gunfire and explosions. Enemy positions were shifting, unaware of the new factor now aligned against them. Carter whispered instructions. "You'll cover the ridge. Ramirez and the others will advance. First shot, neutralize the sniper on the left flank. Then we move." She nodded, raising the rifle slowly, blending into the foliage as if she had been part of the jungle all along. Her calmness radiated through the team, a strange but welcome reassurance in the storm of bullets and fear. The first sniper target came into view, partially obscured by dense foliage. The girl adjusted her scope, inhaled deeply, and exhaled slowly, focusing on the target. Every calculation mattered: distance, wind, angle, gravity. Her finger brushed the trigger gently. Time seemed to slow as she lined up the shot. The SEALs held their breaths, trusting her skill, hoping against all odds. Then the rifle cracked, a single clean shot echoing through the trees. The enemy sniper collapsed. Silence fell for a heartbeat, and the team exhaled collectively. "Good shot," Ramirez whispered, awe evident in his voice. Carter allowed himself a brief nod of approval. She wasn't a student anymore, not really. She had become a crucial part of the mission. Her intellect, precision, and courage had transformed the situation. Every subsequent movement she made was deliberate, calculated, and deadly. The team began to advance under her cover, the jungle no longer just a trap, but a battlefield where strategy, skill, and timing could turn the tide. As they moved, Carter observed her carefully. Her demeanor was unwavering. There was a quiet intensity in her eyes, a focus that demanded respect. Each shot she took was precise, calculated, and effective, neutralizing threats and opening pathways for the SEALs. Ramirez, watching her, muttered under his breath, "I've seen a lot, but nothing like this." The girl was transforming the battlefield, not just with her weapon, but with her presence, her intellect, and her unshakable calm. The jungle around them seemed to hold its breath. Every tree, every shadow, every rustle of leaves carried the potential for danger. Yet, with the girl covering the team, the SEALs moved with renewed confidence. Bullets still tore through the canopy, explosions still shook the ground, but hope was tangible, almost electric, threading through the team. Carter realized that the success of this mission, and possibly their survival, depended on her skill, judgment, and courage. The trade, once absurd in its simplicity, had become the pivot of survival. Books for a rifle seemed trivial against the backdrop of life and death, but the symbolism was profound. Knowledge had literally armed them. Her intellect, years of study, and meticulous preparation were now their weapon. The SEALs moved carefully, taking calculated risks, confident that each step forward was covered by her steady aim. It was a surreal partnership, yet it was working. As the team approached a clearing, the girl's scope picked up movement beyond the immediate firefight enemy reinforcements, attempting to flank them. She signaled silently, and the SEALs adjusted, slipping into cover, prepared to counterattack. Her mind worked like a battlefield calculator, predicting movements, assessing trajectories, and preparing contingencies. Every action was deliberate. Every shot was measured. She had turned an impossible situation into a battlefield advantage, demonstrating that courage, intellect, and preparation could rival experience, training, and brute force. Carter allowed himself a rare thought of admiration. Here was a civilian, thrust into unimaginable circumstances, performing with a precision that matched the SEALs themselves. Her presence had shifted the balance of power. The enemy, unaware of this unexpected sniper, continued their assault, playing into the hands of the team. Each second, each shot, each careful movement brought the SEALs closer to reclaiming the initiative. The jungle, once an oppressive cage, became a theater of strategy, intellect, and audacity. Bullets tore through leaves and mud, explosions scattered debris, and the enemy faltered under precise, lethal fire. The girl's calculated movements allowed the SEALs to maneuver, reclaim high ground, and suppress enemy forces. Every shot she took was a calculated risk, a step toward survival. Her textbooks, once symbols of ordinary life, had been exchanged for something far greater, the power to save lives in a place where every second counted. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the jungle in fiery gold and shadow, Carter realized the surreal truth. They were not only surviving, they were turning the tide. The college girl had become more than a civilian, more than an unlikely ally. She was a force multiplier, a pivot around which survival now revolved. Knowledge, courage, and audacity had transformed into raw, lethal effectiveness. The SEALs moved forward, bullets flying past, mud and leaves torn apart by gunfire. The girl continued to cover them, her focus unwavering, her calculations precise. Each shot was perfect, each movement deliberate, each decision life-saving. The ambush, once a death trap, had become a battlefield of possibility, strategy, and hope. Carter, watching her, knew that this unlikely alliance, civilian and elite soldiers, was the only thing standing between them and disaster. The jungle was alive with chaos, but for the first time since the ambush began, the team moved with confidence, purpose, and direction. A college girl, armed with intellect and courage, had traded books for bullets, turning an impossible situation into an improbable advantage. And as the shadows lengthened and the enemy faltered under her precision, the SEALs understood something profound. Heroism could come from the most unexpected places, and courage could manifest in the unlikeliest of forms. The clearing ahead was alive with tension, bullets zipping through the air, ricocheting off tree trunks and scattering leaves. The SEALs pressed forward cautiously, each step calculated, each hand signal precise. Lieutenant Carter paused, crouching behind a massive fallen log, surveying the terrain. Enemy forces were still advancing, attempting to encircle them. The firefight had reached a critical juncture. The team was pinned down, low on ammunition, and dangerously exposed. But there was one element now on their side, a civilian with sniper skills that could turn the tide. The girl adjusted her scope, lying prone on the forest floor, her rifle steady. Her textbooks, traded for this weapon, were tucked safely into her backpack, forgotten for now. She scanned the tree line, noting movement, wind direction, and distance with mathematical precision. Years of study and secret practice with a rifle now converged into a single moment of intense focus. Each calculation mattered, the trajectory of each bullet, the speed of the wind, the angle of elevation. She wasn't thinking in terms of fear. She was thinking in terms of physics, geometry, and timing. Carter gathered the team in a brief huddle, whispering over the noise of gunfire. "We move under her cover," he explained, nodding toward the girl. "She'll pick off any snipers or enemy forces that spot us first. Ramirez and the others flank left. We hold right. Timing is critical. Any mistakes, and we're done." The team nodded, adrenaline sharpening their senses. They had trained for countless scenarios, but few had prepared them for a civilian operating a sniper rifle with such precision. "Ready?" Carter whispered to the girl. She didn't answer immediately, instead scanning the canopy above, the shadows below, and the faint rustling in the undergrowth. Then she gave a subtle nod, finger hovering near the trigger. Her eyes narrowed, calculating, anticipating. The team fell silent, trusting her instincts. Every second now carried weight, the difference between life and death, survival and disaster. The jungle around them seemed to hum with anticipation. Birds had gone silent, leaves hung suspended, and the air itself felt tense. From her vantage point, the girl could see the enemy's flanking maneuvers, their attempts to encircle the seals. She adjusted the scope, calculating distances down to the meter. Her first shot would set the tone. She could feel the responsibility pressing on her, heavy and real, but it didn't shake her resolve. She exhaled slowly, aligning her crosshairs, and waited for the perfect moment. "Target left flank, 200 meters, she whispered into her earpiece. The seals froze, blending into the undergrowth, ready to move once the shot was fired. Her finger tightened on the trigger, muscles steady, eyes fixed. The enemy sniper, a shadow among the leaves, never noticed her. Time seemed to slow. She accounted for wind, elevation, and movement in a single fluid calculation. Then the rifle cracked, sharp and precise. The sniper collapsed, a perfect shot that shifted the battlefield instantly. "Move now," Carter ordered. With her covering fire, the SEALs advanced, slipping through the mud and debris, securing better positions. The enemy scrambled, disoriented by the sudden loss of their sniper. The jungle echoed with shouts and gunfire, but the tide had begun to turn. Every shot she took provided the team with precious seconds they desperately needed to regain control. The SEALs quickly established new defensive positions, forming a perimeter around the girl's location. She continued to observe, scanning for threats, whispering coordinates, and guiding the soldiers through the chaos. Her focus was unwavering, almost mechanical, yet there was a humanity in her precision, a desire not to kill, but to protect. Each shot was deliberate, each movement calculated to maximize survival and minimize risk. Carter watched her work and felt a growing respect. In minutes, this young college student had become indispensable. Her knowledge of physics, angles, and timing translated seamlessly into combat effectiveness. She wasn't just assisting. She was orchestrating the battlefield, turning an impossible situation into one where the SEALs had a fighting chance. The team moved like shadows, synchronized with their observations, each step calculated and deliberate. "Enemy movement ahead," she whispered. The SEALs adjusted immediately, taking cover behind trees, rocks, and fallen logs. The enemy had regrouped, attempting to close in from multiple directions. But she had anticipated this, calculating trajectories and wind drift for every potential shot. Her first 2 rounds had been warnings. The next few were decisive. Each enemy sniper neutralized gave the team the confidence to advance further, securing ground and forcing the opposition into retreat. The jungle, once a maze of threats and uncertainty, had become a battlefield shaped by strategy and intellect. Her presence shifted the balance. Every shot, every signal, every calculation was a lifeline. The seals began moving forward with renewed energy, reclaiming lost ground. Her calmness inspired them, her focus protected them, and her precise aim turned fear into opportunity. Carter allowed himself a brief moment to reflect. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about adaptation, courage, and the unexpected power of intelligence and preparation. A civilian had become their pivot, their advantage, and in the unpredictable chaos of war, that advantage was priceless. The battlefield had changed, and the enemy was beginning to realize it. As the team advanced, the girl continued to provide sniper cover, eliminating key threats with calm precision. Every shot was a message. The SEALs were not going down without a fight, and the rules of engagement had just been rewritten by an unlikely force. She adjusted her scope, calculated distances, and compensated for environmental factors with meticulous attention. The enemy, unaware of the shift, continued to advance into a trap carefully orchestrated by intellect, courage, and timing. Minutes stretched, the firefight intensifying, yet the SEALs moved as one cohesive unit. Each step forward was coordinated, every risk calculated. Her support allowed them to regain lost positions, suppress enemy movements, and prepare for the next phase of the battle. The jungle, chaotic and dangerous, had become a stage for strategy and precision. Every shot she took, every observation she made, was a critical part of the plan. Finally, as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the jungle floor, Carter realized that the impossible was now possible. The SEALs were no longer pinned down. They had regained control. The girl's calculated guidance, her calm under fire, and her precise shooting had shifted the battlefield in their favor. They had survived the ambush and were preparing for the next stage of extraction. The moment was surreal. A civilian student, armed with intellect and courage, had altered the outcome of a deadly firefight. Her presence had turned fear into focus, chaos into strategy, and uncertainty into a tactical advantage. Carter allowed himself a rare, quiet admiration. She had not only survived, she had led, guided, and protected with a skill that defied expectation. The jungle seemed to exhale along with the SEALs. The immediate threat had been mitigated, but the mission was far from over. Yet, for the first time, they moved with hope and confidence. The girl remained at the center of their operations, her rifle steady, eyes sharp, and mind unshakable. She had become more than an ally. She had become a linchpin, a force multiplier, and a symbol of how courage and intellect could turn the tide in the most impossible situations. As shadows deepened and the hum of insects rose in the cooling air, Carter knew the next moves would be critical. Extraction was still far, enemy forces still threatened, but they now had a secret weapon, an unlikely sniper whose preparation, precision, and courage had reshaped the battlefield. Every SEAL, every heartbeat, every breath was synchronized with her focus, proving that heroism could come from the most unexpected places, and that the right combination of skill, timing, and courage could alter destiny itself. The jungle was alive with chaos. Bullets whizzed through the thick foliage, ricocheting off trees and sending splinters into the humid air. The SEALs moved with tense precision, sliding through mud and undergrowth, eyes sharp, weapons raised. Lieutenant Carter signaled for silence as they reached the edge of a small clearing. Ahead, enemy snipers and patrols moved with lethal coordination, unaware that their positions were about to be compromised. The college girl adjusted her scope, lying prone on a moss-covered log. Her heartbeat was steady, breathing measured, and every muscle primed for action. Years of target practice, long-range calculations, and physics studies converged into this single moment. This wasn't about books or classrooms anymore. It was life or death. Her finger hovered over the trigger. The rifle felt like an extension of her body, an instrument of precision shaped by intellect and focus. Carter whispered through the earpiece. "First shot, neutralize the left flank sniper. Wait for my signal." The girl nodded subtly, her eyes flicking to the tree line. Shadows shifted as the enemy repositioned. She calculated the distance, factoring in wind speed, elevation, and target movement. Every variable mattered. Every miscalculation could be fatal. She exhaled slowly, centering her focus entirely on the crosshairs. Time seemed to stretch, the roar of gunfire fading as her mind isolated the single task before her: the shot. A rustle in the underbrush revealed the enemy sniper's position. The glint of a scope caught the sunlight briefly, giving her the confirmation she needed. Her finger tightened on the trigger, muscles steady. The SEALs held their positions, barely daring to breathe. Then, in a clean, sharp motion, she squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked, the shot echoing through the dense jungle. The enemy sniper crumpled to the ground, neutralized instantly. A hush fell over the immediate area. The SEALs froze for a heartbeat, then a wave of cautious relief passed through them. Ramirez muttered under his breath, "God." "She's good." Carter allowed himself a brief nod. The first shot had shifted the battlefield. The enemy was disoriented, unsure of where the lethal fire had come from. The girl's precision had bought the SEALs precious time, a momentary advantage in a fight that could have ended in disaster. She didn't pause. Another rustle, another movement, another threat. She adjusted her aim, accounting for distance, wind, and trajectory. Each shot was deliberate, precise, and deadly. The second sniper fell, then a third, each eliminated before they could react. The SEALs began moving under her cover, advancing cautiously through the undergrowth, reclaiming ground inch by inch. Her focus never wavered. Each shot she took was a lifeline, every calculated decision protecting the soldiers moving below her. Carter watched in awe as the jungle shifted from a trap into a controlled battlefield. The SEALs moved like shadows, synchronized with their calculations. Every maneuver, every advance, every suppressed shot allowed them to secure better positions. The enemy, still unaware of the true source of the sniper fire, faltered, confusion spreading among their ranks. One by one, enemy combatants were neutralized before they even realized the danger. "Left flank moving," Carter whispered into his earpiece. She tracked the movement instantly, adjusting her scope and taking another clean shot. The enemy soldier never knew what hit him. The team moved again, pressing forward under her precise cover fire. For the first time since the ambush began, hope surged through the SEALs. The impossible was happening. A civilian, armed with intellect and courage, was systematically neutralizing threats and allowing them to regain the upper hand. The girl's mind worked like a battlefield calculator. Wind, distance, elevation, and timing all converged in perfect harmony. She observed patterns, anticipated movements, and executed shots with surgical precision. The SEALs followed her guidance, advancing strategically and reclaiming territory that had once seemed lost. Every bullet she fired, every target eliminated, bolstered their confidence and gradually broke the enemy's momentum. Minutes felt like hours. The jungle echoed with intermittent gunfire, punctuated by the occasional explosion of distant artillery or grenade. Yet amidst the chaos, a rhythm emerged. Her shots were deliberate and effective. The SEALs' movements were synchronized. The enemy faltered under the calculated precision. Carter realized they were no longer simply surviving. They were gaining ground, shaping the battlefield around her strategy. Ramirez glanced at her, disbelief evident in his eyes. "I've seen a lot in combat, but never anything like this," he muttered. She adjusted her aim, ignoring the comment, scanning for the next threat. Another enemy sniper emerged on a ridge ahead, silhouetted against the fading light. Her scope aligned, and the shot rang out. The enemy crumpled silently, the kill precise, efficient, almost clinical. Each success built momentum, not just physically, but psychologically. The team now moved with confidence, understanding that survival depended on this unique partnership. The girl continued, covering the seals as they advanced further into the clearing. Trees, rocks, and fallen logs became tactical cover points, her rifle providing a lethal shield from above. Every movement she made was calculated, purposeful. She wasn't just shooting. She was orchestrating the battlefield, anticipating threats, and guiding the team's advance. The SEALs, trained for chaos, relied on her intellect as much as their own combat skills. Together, they formed an unlikely, lethal synergy. Carter allowed himself a brief reflection. A civilian student, someone who had only intended to study abroad and read in libraries, had now become the difference between life and death for an elite military unit. Her courage, intelligence, and preparation had transformed an ambush into a controlled, tactical engagement. Every shot she fired, every calculation she made, had shifted the battlefield in their favor. As SEALs began consolidating their positions, using her cover to secure higher ground and suppress enemy fire. Bullets tore through leaves and mud, but her precision prevented casualties. Every shot counted. Every decision mattered. She had turned chaos into order, fear into calculated action. The battlefield, once a near-certain trap, now bent to their strategy, guided by her intellect and nerve. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the jungle floor. The enemy attempted to regroup, but their ranks were thinning, morale faltering. With her continued sniper support, the SEALs could maneuver freely, neutralizing threats systematically. Her textbooks, now symbolic of intellect, traded for action, lay safely tucked away. Knowledge had become weaponized, transforming theory into practice, precision into survival. Finally, a lull fell over the immediate area. The SEALs had secured a defensive perimeter, and the girl continued to observe, tracking enemy movements, calculating trajectories, and preparing for the next engagement. Carter signaled the team to regroup. They were battered, tense, and exhausted, yet alive. Every member of the team silently acknowledged the truth. The mission and their survival had hinged on her first shots. Without her, the outcome could have been fatal. In that moment, she was no longer just a college student. She was a sniper, a strategist, and a crucial ally. Her courage and precision had shifted the battlefield, buying time, opening opportunities, and ensuring the survival of an elite SEAL team. Carter, watching her scan the tree line with unwavering focus, felt a profound sense of respect and admiration. The enemy, now aware of the devastating sniper fire, began to hesitate. Every movement they made risked elimination. The jungle, once an environment of terror, had become a controlled battlefield, shaped by intellect and courage. The SEALs advanced further, covering one another, each step safer because of the calculated protection she provided. The girl exhaled, adjusting her scope, eyes sharp, mind precise. Her first shots had rewritten the rules of engagement, shifting momentum and instilling hope where despair had loomed. The battlefield had been transformed not by brute force alone, but by the combination of intellect, courage, and skill. Every bullet, every observation, every calculation had made the difference. Carter nodded to Ramirez, signaling the next phase of movement. The SEALs were no longer pinned down. Thanks to the girl's precise, deliberate, and fearless actions, they had gained a critical advantage. Her first shots had not only neutralized immediate threats, they had changed the entire trajectory of the mission, turning an ambush into an opportunity and chaos into controlled strategy. The jungle, once a claustrophobic cage of danger, had shifted. Enemy forces, disoriented by precise sniper fire and the SEALs' coordinated movements, began to falter. Shadows moved less confidently, Footsteps hesitated, and whispers of confusion rippled through the ranks. The girl remained prone, scope trained on a ridge where enemy movement was most concentrated. Her finger hovered over the trigger, each shot a calculated disruption to their plans. Lieutenant Carter took a deep breath. All units advance carefully. Maintain cover. Watch her signals. His voice was calm but firm. The SEALs, emboldened by her accuracy, moved with renewed confidence. Each step was deliberate. Each pause synchronized with her sniper coverage. The combination of trained combatants and her analytical precision had transformed the battlefield. From her vantage point, the girl scanned the terrain like a living map. She noticed enemy soldiers attempting to regroup behind trees and makeshift barricades. Adjusting her aim, she took out 2 combatants in rapid succession, each shot measured and calculated. The SEALs seized the opportunity, flanking left and right, reclaiming lost positions, and securing critical high ground. The tide had begun to turn. Sergeant Ramirez, moving cautiously through a muddy trench, glanced upward. "I can't believe it. She's controlling this fight." Carter's eyes never left the girl's position. She wasn't just helping. They were moving at her rhythm, guided by her predictions and precision. Every shot she fired, every movement she anticipated, created space for the SEALs to maneuver, turning what had been a deadly ambush into a tactical advantage. The enemy, sensing the sudden shift, began firing indiscriminately. Panic spread through their ranks. Soldiers scattered, attempting to find cover, but the girl's scope picked them off before they could stabilize. Carter's team advanced methodically, moving from tree to tree, every step shielded by sniper fire. Bullets tore past leaves and mud, but none found their mark. Confidence surged through the SEALs. They were no longer reacting. They were dictating the pace of battle. "Left flank is clear," she whispered into her earpiece, voice calm, focused, unwavering. Carter acknowledged with a nod. The SEALs repositioned, establishing a new perimeter that allowed them to consolidate gains and plan the next move. The enemy, disorganized and terrified, was now being forced into reactive maneuvers. Every attempt to flank or regroup was anticipated, neutralized, and exploited. The girl's calculations were flawless. She accounted for distance, elevation, wind, and movement, creating a protective umbrella over the advancing SEALs. Each sniper eliminated, each suppressive shot increased their tactical advantage. The SEALs moved with lethal coordination, reclaiming strategic positions that had been lost at the onset of the ambush. Momentum was theirs, for the first time in hours. Ramirez, crouched behind a large root system, couldn't hide his astonishment. "This is insane. She's making this look easy." Carter remained silent, scanning the horizon. The battlefield had become a complex interplay of strategy, precision, and courage, all orchestrated by an unlikely sniper. The team began to advance more aggressively, moving as one unit while she provided overwatch from above. Enemy snipers attempted to relocate, but her awareness was unmatched. She calculated angles and distances instantly, taking out each threat before it could pose danger. Her shots were precise, lethal, and perfectly timed to allow the SEALs to regain ground. What had started as an ambush had now become a controlled engagement. The jungle, once a trap, was now their arena. As the SEALs moved into higher ground, Carter signaled for the team to regroup. The girl continued covering, scanning, and calculating. Bullets tore past the trees, but she neutralized every imminent threat before it could impact the team. "Keep advancing. Maintain cover," she whispered. Her voice, calm yet commanding, became a steady anchor amidst chaos. The enemy's morale was fracturing. Confusion and fear spread as their ranks dwindled, casualties mounting, and strategic positions lost. The SEALs, emboldened, pressed forward, using every advantage the girl provided. She was no longer just an ally. She was the tactical linchpin, the guiding force turning desperation into dominance. Carter observed the battlefield, realizing something extraordinary. The combination of elite training and her precise, analytical support had completely altered the fight. The enemy had underestimated her, a civilian, and now paid the price. The jungle echoed with the chaos of retreating forces, suppressed by calculated sniper fire. She continued to guide their movement, every shot deliberate, every instruction precise. The SEALs advanced confidently, flanking and reclaiming positions, turning the enemy's strategy against them. What had been an overwhelming ambush was now collapsing, the momentum firmly in the SEALs' favor. The battlefield had shifted, and victory, once improbable, now seemed attainable. Minutes stretched into a tense rhythm of movement, observation, and precise firing. Each step forward was calculated, every engagement controlled, and the SEALs moved as one unit under her watchful eye. The girl's presence had transformed fear into focus, chaos into strategy, and uncertainty into controlled action. Every shot had meaning, every calculation life-saving. Finally, Carter allowed himself a moment of acknowledgement. "She's keeping us alive," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Ramirez nodded, adjusting his weapon. The enemy, disorganized and faltering, was being forced into retreat. The SEALs moved confidently, their momentum amplified by her precise sniper coverage. The jungle, once oppressive and chaotic, had become a stage for tactical mastery. The girl, lying prone on the forest floor, eyes locked on the tree line, remained calm. Her calculated shots continued to suppress enemy movement, allowing the SEALs to secure critical positions and neutralize key threats. Every movement, every decision, every shot she executed was essential to turning the tide. She was not just participating, she was controlling the battlefield. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the jungle floor, Carter realized the full significance of their situation. A civilian student, armed with intellect, courage, and precision, had shifted the balance of the ambush entirely. The enemy, previously confident and coordinated, was now disoriented, fleeing, and reacting to a force they could not predict. The SEALs moved into a secure perimeter, consolidating gains and preparing for the next phase. The girl remained vigilant, scope scanning, calculations precise. Every step they took, every position they secured, was covered by her meticulous observation and lethal skill. The battlefield had been reshaped, the enemy demoralized, and the SEALs' survival assured for now. Carter allowed himself a rare moment of admiration and reflection. Heroism could emerge from the most unexpected places. Courage could manifest in forms beyond expectation. And intellect, combined with preparation, could become as lethal as any trained soldier. She had proven that the impossible could be turned into opportunity. The jungle, once a chaotic trap, now bore witness to a new rhythm. Bullets still flew, but with precision guiding each movement. The SEALs advanced confidently, the enemy scattered, and the mission, once teetering on the edge of disaster, was now salvageable. And at the center of it all, guiding, calculating, and executing with unshakable focus, was a college girl who had traded books for a rifle, turning fear into survival and chaos into control. The jungle had shifted from chaos to controlled engagement, but the danger was far from over. Enemy forces were retreating, but not surrendering. Their desperation made them unpredictable, more dangerous, and every shadow could conceal a hidden gunman. Lieutenant Carter signaled the team to move, eyes scanning constantly, each step measured and precise. They had to reach the extraction point before nightfall, or risk being trapped deep in hostile territory. The girl remained prone, scope trained on the tree line, covering their advance. Her first shots had broken the enemy's momentum, and now her continued presence ensured the SEALs could maneuver with relative safety. Every movement she made was deliberate, precise, and lethal if necessary. She wasn't just protecting them, she was orchestrating their escape, predicting enemy movements and neutralizing threats before they could strike. Ramirez whispered as he crawled behind a fallen log. "This is insane." "She's holding our lives in her hands." Carter didn't reply. He simply observed. The girl's calm focus was all they needed. Each target she eliminated allowed the SEALs to inch closer to the clearing that marked the path to extraction. Mud and leaves clung to their boots, sweat poured down their faces, and adrenaline sharpened every sense. The enemy attempted one last coordinated attack, trying to cut off the team's route. A burst of gunfire erupted from a ridge ahead. The SEALs ducked, taking cover, hearts pounding. The girl's voice came through the earpiece, steady and commanding. 2 targets, 150 meters, ridge left. Wait for the shot, steady. Now, a single clean shot rang out. One enemy soldier collapsed instantly. The second dropped moments later. The path was clear, and the SEALs moved forward without hesitation. The extraction point loomed in the distance, a small clearing marked by a helicopter signal. Time was critical. Darkness would give the enemy cover, and the jungle would once again become a deadly trap. Carter signaled for a coordinated advance, using the girl's sniper coverage to move the team from cover to cover. Every log, every tree, every mound of mud was a potential shield as they raced through the jungle. "Keep your eyes sharp," she whispered urgently. Movement flickered on the edge of her scope, an enemy soldier attempting to flank them from the right. She calculated quickly: distance, angle, wind, trajectory. A second later, the shot rang out, neutralizing the threat before he could reach the SEALs. The team barely had time to breathe, but momentum carried them forward. Every step now depended on her calculation, every shot on her precision. The SEALs reached a narrow stream, the only natural cover before the clearing. Waterlogged mud slowed their progress, but the girl's watchful eye guided them through the safest path. One misstep could expose them to enemy fire, yet her presence allowed the team to move decisively, efficiently, without hesitation. The jungle seemed alive with tension, every rustle and shadow a potential threat. Enemy movement, 50 meters left. She whispered. Carter signaled the team to halt. She took aim, then fired another clean shot that eliminated a hidden threat. The SEALs pressed forward immediately, crossing the stream and moving toward the clearing. The helicopter's distant rotor sound was faint but reassuring. Survival and extraction were within reach, yet the danger remained real and immediate. As the team emerged from the tree line into the clearing, the enemy attempted one final ambush. A volley of gunfire erupted, hitting the ground dangerously close to their feet. Carter ducked low, signaling the team into defensive positions. The girl, lying prone on a ridge overlooking the clearing, adjusted her scope and took careful aim. One by one, enemy combatants were neutralized, each shot precise and calculated. Her support turned panic into controlled advance, fear into disciplined movement. The SEALs sprinted the final meters toward the extraction zone. Mud and sweat covered their bodies, rifles clutched tightly, hearts pounding. Every second counted. Darkness was approaching, and the enemy, now desperate, was striking erratically. The girl's eyes scanned constantly, her breath measured, every shot deliberate. Another threat emerged, a sniper positioned to intercept them at the clearing. Her calculation was perfect: distance, elevation, wind. The rifle cracked, and the sniper fell, the danger eliminated. Carter motioned to the helicopter's signal, its rotor cutting through the humid evening air. They were close, just a few hundred meters away, but the jungle remained dangerous. The girl's presence allowed the SEALs to move as one unit, covering each other's movements while she suppressed enemy threats. Her precision allowed them to avoid casualties and maintain momentum. Every second brought them closer to extraction. Finally, the clearing was within reach. The helicopter's lights flickered through the jungle, casting a warm glow that seemed almost surreal. The enemy, now fully aware of the sniper covering their retreat, began to scatter completely. The SEALs moved into the clearing, weapons raised, but free from immediate danger. Carter glanced back toward the girl. She had not only kept them alive, she had guided them safely to this point, neutralizing every imminent threat with calm precision. The helicopter descended, blades chopping through the humid air. The SEALs sprinted the final few meters, leaping aboard with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Carter turned to glance at the jungle floor, noting the trails of enemy retreat and the absence of immediate threat. Then his eyes found the girl, still lying prone, scope scanning, ready for any last-minute danger. "Move now," he shouted. The girl rose to her feet, rifle slung, backpack secured, and sprinted the final distance across the clearing. Bullets whizzed dangerously close, but she kept her focus. Her calculations, her skill, and her courage had brought them all this far. She leaped aboard the helicopter, just as the rotors lifted them out of the jungle. Carter exhaled deeply for the first time in hours. The impossible had been achieved. Every SEAL on board was battered, exhausted, but alive. The girl, clutching the rifle she had wielded with deadly precision, finally allowed herself to relax. Her textbooks were gone, traded for survival and tactical advantage. Yet she had gained something far greater: respect, trust, and the knowledge that her preparation and courage had saved lives. The jungle fell away beneath them, a silent witness to the chaos, courage, and unexpected heroism that had unfolded. Carter looked at the girl, silent admiration in his eyes. "You did good," he said simply. She nodded, exhaustion and relief mixing in her expression. The helicopter rose into the sky, carrying them away from danger, toward safety, and toward a mission that had been nearly lost, but was now won, thanks to an unlikely ally whose courage and intellect had reshaped the battlefield. The helicopter rose steadily, cutting through the humid evening sky. Below, the jungle stretched endlessly, silent now except for distant echoes of chaos left behind. Lieutenant Carter exhaled, the tension of the past hours slowly draining from his shoulders. The SEALs sat silently, weapons still in hand, adrenaline ebbing, minds replaying the ambush, the firefight, and the improbable events that had led to their survival. They had been pinned down, outnumbered, and cornered, but somehow, against all odds, they had prevailed. The girl, sitting beside Carter, rifle across her lap, finally allowed herself to relax. Her muscles ached, and the sweat on her brow had dried into streaks of dust and grime, but relief mingled with exhaustion in her chest. She had traded textbooks for bullets, libraries for live fire, and her intellect had become a lifeline for men trained for death. Every shot, every calculation, every moment of courage had mattered. She had changed the outcome. Carter glanced at her, a mixture of admiration and disbelief on his face. "You saved us," he said quietly, almost reverently. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was immense. Ramirez, sitting opposite her, shook his head in amazement. "I've seen a lot of things in combat, but nothing like this. You were incredible out there." The girl only smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her eyes. She didn't feel like a hero, just someone who had acted when it mattered most. The helicopter's rotor blades churned the thickening evening air, sending a fine spray of condensation around the cabin. Below, the enemy forces were scattered, demoralized, and disorganized, unable to regroup effectively. The SEALs had turned what seemed like certain death into a tactical victory. Every movement, every decision, and every shot had been crucial, but none so decisive as the girl's sniper cover. Without her, the ambush might have ended in catastrophe. Carter allowed himself a moment to reflect on the surreal chain of events. They had been pinned down, outnumbered, and desperate. Yet, in the middle of the chaos, an unlikely ally had appeared, someone whose intellect, courage, and preparation had become the difference between life and death. It was a lesson in adaptability, trust, and recognizing skill where it could be found. Heroism did not always wear a uniform. The girl rested her hands on her rifle, eyes scanning the jungle one last time as they flew away. She thought briefly of her textbooks, now left behind, traded for survival. There was a strange satisfaction in knowing that knowledge, preparation, and discipline could become weapons of real consequence. The jungle, once a threatening maze, had become the stage for intellect and courage to reshape fate. Ramirez leaned back, letting out a long, slow breath. "I still can't believe what just happened. You're not like anyone I've ever met." The girl chuckled softly, a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "I just did what I had to do. It's not about being different. It's about acting when it matters." Carter nodded in agreement. Every member of the team felt a profound respect for her, not just for her skill, but for her calm courage under unimaginable pressure. The helicopter banked gently, heading toward the extraction base. Darkness began to blanket the jungle, but inside the cabin, a quiet sense of victory and survival settled over the team. They had faced ambush, overwhelming numbers, and a constant threat of death, but together, with trust and precision, they had prevailed. The girl's presence had been the linchpin, the factor that transformed desperation into strategy, chaos into control. Carter finally spoke, voice steady but reflective. "This mission could have been a disaster. But you changed everything. You saved lives today. Don't ever underestimate what one person, properly prepared and courageous, can do." The girl looked at him, a mixture of humility and quiet pride. "I didn't do it alone," she said softly. "You all moved with skill and discipline. I just helped tip the balance." As the helicopter approached the base, the SEALs began checking their weapons, securing ammunition, and preparing for debrief. The girl kept her rifle close, eyes still alert despite the relative safety. The jungle below seemed distant now, a place of chaos and courage, death and survival. She thought of every calculation she had made, every shot fired, and every risk taken. Each decision had mattered. Each second had been critical. And in the end, they had all survived. The landing zone came into view, a flat clearing, lights blazing, personnel waiting. The helicopter descended smoothly, touching down amidst the roar of rotors. The team disembarked quickly, adrenaline still high, bodies trembling from exhaustion and relief. Carter turned to the girl, offering a hand. She took it, stepping down from the helicopter, feeling the firm ground beneath her feet as if it were a newfound gift. "Welcome back," Carter said quietly, a smile breaking through his usually stoic demeanor. Ramirez clapped her lightly on the shoulder. "You've earned more respect in a few hours than most earn in a lifetime," he said. She smiled again, a mixture of fatigue, relief, and quiet satisfaction. Today, she had done something extraordinary. She had taken courage, intellect, and preparation, and turned it into survival and victory. Inside the base, the team was debriefed, medical checks completed, and reports filed. The girl sat quietly, still clutching her rifle, thinking about how surreal the events had been. From the library to the jungle, from textbooks to sniper fire, her world had shifted completely in a matter of hours. Yet despite the chaos, the danger, and the violence, she had acted with precision, courage, and clarity. She had survived. She had protected others. and she had transformed the outcome of a deadly ambush. Carter approached her one last time, voice low but firm. "You're a remarkable person. Today, you didn't just help us survive. You reminded us that preparation, intellect, and courage matter as much as training and experience. Don't ever forget that." The girl nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. She had been a civilian, a student, and now, for a few intense hours, she had been a savior, a sniper, and a pivotal force on the battlefield. As night fell over the base, the SEALs retired for rest, the girl remaining quiet, reflecting on everything that had happened. She thought of the jungle, the chaos, the shots fired, and the lives saved. Every decision, every calculation, every ounce of courage had mattered. She had faced the unimaginable, acted decisively, and survived. And in doing so, she had rewritten what it meant to be prepared, brave, and effective. The mission was complete. The SEALs were safe. The enemy had been neutralized or driven away. And amidst it all, a college girl armed with intellect, courage, and a sniper rifle had made the difference between survival and catastrophe. She looked around at the team, exhausted but alive, and realized something profound. Heroism could emerge from the most unexpected places, and courage could manifest in the unlikeliest of forms. As dawn approached, painting the sky with shades of gold and orange, the girl finally allowed herself to relax fully. The jungle, once a crucible of chaos and danger, had tested her mind, body, and courage. She had survived. She had fought. She had saved lives. And though the textbooks were gone, traded for action, she had gained something far greater, the knowledge that preparation, intellect, and bravery could alter fate itself. The SEALs, standing around her, nodded in silent respect. She had proven that the improbable could become possible, that one person's courage and skill could change the course of a mission, and that even in the darkest jungles of conflict, intellect and bravery could shine through like a beacon of hope. And so, as the first light of day touched the horizon, the girl looked out at the jungle, rifle resting across her lap, heart still racing, yet filled with quiet satisfaction. She had faced the unimaginable, and in doing so, had written her own extraordinary chapter of survival, courage, and heroism.